Hey, race fans, Doug Boles here, coming to you from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You know, we're less than 2 weeks away from the 106th running of the Indianapolis 500. But what kicks the weekend off? It's Carb Day. And it's not just the practice and the pit stop competition. It's really all about the music in the afternoon and the fun that we're going to have, kicking things off with Morris Day and the Time. We got a little bit of Rick Springfield. But we've been talking an awful lot about Kings of Chaos and the group that's coming. And it is going to be chaos in the concert area, and can't wait to do that. Kings of Chaos is a super band that Matt Sorum and Gilby Clark really helped put together. And I'm excited to be joined by Matt and Gilby to talk a little bit about Kings, what you can expect, and some of the special guest stars there. So Matt, Gilby, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you know, thanks, one of the things that will get out of the way really quickly. So Matt, we are excited to have you. We're so excited that we asked you to wave the green flag. So you got a little extra work to do on Carb Day. So you're going to kick off the 230 mile per hour, 33 driver practice in the afternoon. We'll get you out there with a green flag, and then we'll let you go get warmed up and ready to go with our concert outside in our venue. It should be a blast. But you know, I got a chance to hear you guys in Vegas, and the thing that hit me several years ago was, oh my gosh, this is the perfect Carb Day band. Matt, you got Guns N' Roses, The Cult. I mean, you play with all kinds of folks. When did you decide that the super band Kings of Chaos needed to be formed?
Well, I mean, for me, it's a bucket list thing. You know, I was like, there's a bunch of guys that I grew up listening to that I love. And I somehow along the road of all of our travels playing rock and roll, I met some of these guys, you know, Billy Gibbons, Steven Tyler, Robin Zander, all these greats that, you know, came a little bit before me and Gilby, you know, back in the 70s, but it kind of started there. And I just started calling them and going, hey, you want to go play? And when they said yes, I was like, all right, you know.
So only Matt can get away with calling Steven Tyler and saying, hey, dude, let's jam.
Yeah. And then he would go, well, what are we going to play? I go, well, I want to play Toys in the Attic and Back in the Saddle. But, you know, so we started doing this thing. God, it's been going on maybe almost 10 years now. I can't even remember, but we've been all over with it. And we've had all these great guests that come up. So we have a core band. Gilby's been there a lot of the time. We've been to Africa, South America, all over the United States. And we're really honored to be here at the Indianapolis 500. And this is kind of a little bit of a different lineup for us. We've never had John Waite on stage with us, which is incredible. Yeah. And sorry about, I got a little dog in the back there.
Well, we all have dogs, and dogs are awesome. So our fans will love you even more knowing that you have dogs. So that's all good. Let them bark.
Yeah, we've never done Lita Ford. Yeah. Really excited about that. So we're going to have, you know, a couple of new people on stage with us, and Jack Blades has done it with us before. Sebastian.
So I think when I saw you, you had Billy Gibbons, which was really cool to have Billy out there. And I know Billy's out touring, so he wasn't really available. But you two met through Guns N' Roses, or did you guys know each other before that started?
Well, I met Matt before Guns N' Roses. We both kind of were playing the same scene, you know, around Hollywood. But I didn't know him well. I didn't know him really until, you know, the Guns days. But, you know, I always admired his work. I saw him play with many bands. And, you know, when there's a good drummer, you know it. It sounds good. He looks great playing. And I like I said, I always admired his work much before GNR came along.
Thanks, Gilby.
Right on, brother.
So I asked that question because, Matt, you talked through two artists that you guys have never played with before. Obviously, you and Gilby kind of probably know each other, know how each other's going to play. You could probably read each other's minds. How do you get prepared for two brand new artists you've never played for to come out and actually do a show?
Well, we're going to rehearse and get it, you know, and songs we love. I mean, the thing that's great about Kings of Chaos is it's packed with hits. So we go for
play the hits.
We go for the jugular. And I learned that from playing with guys like Gene Simmons, you know, give the people what they want, Gene would say, you know. And you know, when you play with these greats, they have this catalog of hits. So you ask them to play the ones that are, you know, top of the list. So when you come to see Kings of Chaos, it's almost like seeing an encore of any great band. You get all the best songs that you've been waiting for the whole show, right? So,
and it's actually difficult doing the song list because most of these songs are like the last songs of their band's sets. So, you know, when Round and Round from Rat is like, you know, their big hit encore song, but we're playing it fourth or fifth in a set. So it's always a little strange when we do things like that. But like
Yeah.
Matt said, they're all hits and they're all great. Every song is fantastic.
And then for us, it's a little bit, like I said, it's a bit of a bucket list thing. So we pick the songs we love. Like John Waite, for instance, I was a huge Babies fan. I'm
Yeah,
a
right.
massive Babies fan. And if people remember that band and love that band, some of those songs, you know, that we're going to play that. And obviously his big hits, you know, that he had, Missing You and everything. And got to do that, you know.
Right.
So that's the fun part about it. We get a little bit of a joy of like being able to play something we've always wanted to play. Like I think John Waite is one of the great rock singers, you know, out there, and I'm really excited for him to be coming. And then we've had some women on stage with the Kings of Chaos. We just had Ann Wilson recently, but to get Lita to come was really cool, and it's got like this cool you know, rock and roll flavor to it that I feel is going to fit the indie vibe perfectly, you know. And I did the indie thing years ago with my other party band, Camp Freddy, and we played out there. And I remember Rival Sons opened, but this is really special. I think it's perfect for the people that are going to be there drinking beer and hanging out.
And a couple of us boys in the band are Midwest boys. So our bass player Sean is actually from Indianapolis, and I'm from Cleveland. So we really get the Indy 500 thing.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to it. And I really think our fan that comes out is going to totally get you guys. So I'm going to ask you something real quickly because I'm interested in it. It has nothing to do with Carb Day. And you guys may look at me and say, we don't even know what you're talking about. So I check Twitter every morning just to check in and see what's going on. And this morning I'm reading Twitter at like 5 a.m. and there's this really cool story about a high school senior who fills in for Pearl Jam because their drummer had COVID. Have you guys seen that story?
No.
So you got to check it out. He does Mind Your Manners, plays drums because in San Francisco, I think it just happened this week. And one of the coolest stories I think I've seen is some high school senior gets a chance to kick things off with Mind Your Manners and for Pearl Jam, which was
wow, that's huge.
Yeah, you think about super bands, right? I mean, I'm sure Pearl Jam could have called Matt or whoever, right? And got them, but they put a high school senior in there, which is pretty
wow,
neat.
check it out. Cool.
So yeah, the guy's, I can't remember his last name. His first name was Kai, Kai, but it was one of those feel good stories that you're looking at in the morning. And I love especially a little heavier metal rock and roll. So that's one of the things I love.
Rock and roll has heart. It definitely has heart.
100%. And for me, you mentioned how much you love John Waite. So my first memory of John Waite, I was a freshman in high school, so I'm like 3 or 4 years younger than you guys, and I had a foot injury, and I had my cast taken off, and Back on My Feet Again was one of the songs. Was a big song at that point in time. So that's sort of my roots with as a fan of him go back to that point. But when you guys, so with you got Jack Blades, Lita Ford, there's so many John Waite, there's so many hits to all those guys. How do you really choose which ones? Is it do you vote on it, or just the two of you decide?
Matt picks them. Matt goes, these are my favorites. I mean, obviously you have to play some of the biggest hits, but like he said, he can sneak in one that might not be their biggest hit, but the fans will know that song.
Yeah, so, Sebastian's funny because he always sends a big long list of songs he wants to sing. But but we as a band, we've all got to learn, that we want to learn them as close to the record as possible. Yeah. Keep the sound where it was when they made those records. Like we've done gigs with like Alice Cooper and Billy. Sometimes he'll turn around and go, man, that sounded just like the record. And we're like, well, yeah. And in reality, we go, well, when was the last time you listened to your own record?
Right.
Because the songs evolve on tours and things like that.
You think Alice Cooper's sitting around listening to $1 Billion Babies at his house? Probably not. I mean, so we've got it closer probably to the original than maybe he's played it in a lot of years, because I'm pretty particular with the band. I go, let's learn that arrangement, and try to keep that exact feel of those original recordings, because that's what the fans remember. And there's little riffs and there's little drum fills, and you try to capture all that stuff, because in my opinion that makes the songs.
And we
also
go
back to what you were talking about, Gene Simmons, right, saying give the fans what they want, and the fans want to hear the way they remember that they learned to sing it on the radio, right?
I had to go to Gene's house so he could show me how to play the Kiss songs properly. There's a very certain style to learn those Kiss songs, and Gene has the formula.
That's pretty cool.
We have
That's got to be a weird
guitarist.
feeling, right? Having Gene Simmons tell you how to play play his songs.
Yeah.
Warren DeMartini is one of the great rock guitarists, and him and Gilby, and this, I mean, these guys take it really seriously. So when I put the set list together, which has been almost a month and a half, 2 months ago, Gilby and Warren get together and work out the parts for the two guitars that happen on those albums.
Yeah.
What guy's going to play what part, and then obviously me and Sean deal with the rhythm section part of it, and then putting the vocals on top. These singers come in and sing it, and there's interesting things that have happened because Alice Cooper sings different arrangement, and maybe like school's out now. So I say to the guys, let's make sure we listen to the live version, because Alice has been singing it the same way now so we got to catch the little things that they've changed. But we do that only because it's natural for a singer to be on stage and sing it the way they've been singing it.
Right.
And so we go through the details, and make sure we got the endings kind of how they remember, and
as a musician, it's fun learning these songs because you get a different appreciation for them. We didn't grow up playing these songs, so when we learn them, we're like, wow, that's really interesting that the way they wrote that or they played that. Would have never thought of it that way. So it's definitely a nice challenge.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's fascinating, and I think our folks coming will think it's just the way the subtleties of trying to make sure it's right and the things that are different. It's like race cars, right? People just think you're turning in circles, but when you really start to understand the business, there's so many little things that make the difference between the amateur and the professional, right?
Absolutely.
And in our preparation and just the uniqueness that each of you bring to it. I want to ask, so this is sort of a racing related question, and Gilby, I don't know, it may have been a year ahead of you on Guns N' Roses, but Days of Thunder. And I think Matt, I know for sure that you were on Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Yeah, it was my first track.
A Bob Dylan song, right? I mean, a really cool Bob Dylan song that's been remade. But the version on Days of Thunder was an amazing version. I think it actually did pretty well in the charts as well. As musicians, for both of you, is there, when you cover somebody's song, do you feel like there's some pressure to do it in a way that pays a little bit of respect to the people that either wrote it or performed it the first time?
I don't know if there's pressure, but I mean, we definitely want to honor, how they wrote it, the writers and the guitar players. The guitar player may not have wrote the song, but what he brought to that song is important, and we definitely want to capture that feel. I mean, we also got to be ourselves too, but no, absolutely got to play them right.
Yeah. Well, GNR, we covered a lot of stuff that was like almost, I was like, whoa, really Knocking on Heaven's Door. And it was really funny because younger fans, I mean, you got to look at 30 years ago, younger fans would come up and say, hey, I love your song, Knocking on Heaven's Door. And you'd be like, hey, you might want to check this guy out. Bob Dylan. And so they learned about Bob Dylan through us, right? So we were like carrying the tradition forward. And then, obviously we did Paul McCartney, Live and Let Die. We covered a song that I was like, oh my God, how can you even do this better? Sympathy for the Devil by the Stones. We did for a movie called Interview with the Vampire. And right then I was like, that song's perfect. Why would you want to mess with it? But we did this version that ended up being in the movie. And, but it's a lot of times it can be borderline sacrilege, it's like, it's like, oh my God, that's a masterpiece, but
leave it alone.
But we did some things that were definitely made our own out of them, and turned a lot of younger fans onto people like Nazareth. We did a cover of Hair of the Dog, which was like, maybe our fans didn't know Nazareth,
right?
Or punk bands that we covered. We covered The Damned, we covered Fear. All these, people discovered them, and a lot of those punk bands thanked us, for 5 million records, So it was cool.
So as artists, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of joy in playing and putting something together with other really talented artists. So I'm sure that's a piece of it. But how much is the crowd interaction and the crowd response drive your desire to continue to perform?
Well, for me, it's like I said, I think for a lot of the bands that Gilby and myself have been in, we've been up there playing those songs so many nights in a row. Not to say we're ever punching the clock. Like we're not like, phoning it in, but we play that set a certain way. The fans know those songs, and they're going to sing the hits and they're going to be with you. For us, when we do Kings of Chaos, we're up there like we're in it, like we were kids.
Yeah.
Because we're fans of each other. So that brings the audience into the environment and the joy that we're having. And I've always see it because they're like, they look up there, they go, wow, those guys are having fun too.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
I mean, I know you've gone to shows where you look up at the band, you go, they're they're getting to the set for the 300th time that year. You know what I mean? But for us, it's like, this is the first time we're doing it. And there's a feeling between the audience and the band that's happening. It's a moment. And that's what we're going to do at Indie. It's going to be like a moment, a special moment that might not happen that way ever again.
Yeah,
Right.
true.
So that's kind of how we roll. And we just walk up and go, wow, cool.
Yep.
I mean, every time for me, when we play with the Robin Zanders and Billy Gibbons, I pinch myself, because that is, it's heaven. I just can't believe that we're on stage with these guys, and they're just so incredible and inspiring.
Well, and that's part of the reason I'm so excited about you guys. It's just the talent that's going to be on stage, the songs that people are going to hear is pretty amazing. So Matt, when you're coming up with that set list, how do you figure out what goes where? Because I'm sure two of the songs are and I'm going to use them as examples, are a little bit different. They don't fit quite together. So if you take Night Ranger and Jack Blades and Sister Christian, which is sort of a rock ballad, but a little mellower, and then you take you go right into some Rat song that's Round and Round, which is completely different. Do you have to think about where those songs are going to fit so that it flows properly?
Don't want to start the set with the ballad.
Right.
Usually we knock them over the head for a few,
Yep.
Typically in the rock and roll thing, we want to kind of get in there and give it to them, and then we'll bring it down. Jack will probably come up, maybe second or maybe even third. I haven't figured that out yet, but we used to mix it up with Kings. We would do a couple and then a singer would go off and then come back again. And we just keep flowing like that. But this time, since we've got 4 singers, and maybe even Gilby might sing one, we haven't discussed that yet, but we'll probably keep them up there. We'll go boom, 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 boom. And then we'll finish out with a finale, which we've already got that song.
It's also really hard to keep Sebastian Bach off the stage. He gets so excited. He wants to sing with everyone.
He does. He wants to be up there. So I'm like, Sebastian, what about if you're coming up last? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
But he wants to sing with Lita. He wants to sing. When Robin came, he was like a fan. Like when Robin Zander came, Sebastian was like, same thing with, oh my God, Sebastian Bach and Kiss? Are you kidding me? Like, he was like, oh my God, it's Gene Simmons. I'm like,
right.
So that's what happens internally with us. We're all fans of each other.
Right.
I put this thing together, and I call people that we all like. It's like,
right.
We don't call like the guys that we don't want to. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And fans of each other, fans of each other's songs. The legacy, and the ilk that we're kind of cut from. It all fits together because it's rock and roll. Right. That's it basically. And with the same core band on stage, it's going to have a little bit different feel from the original sonically, slightly.
Yeah.
But maybe more rock, maybe different. Because Sister Christian, I mean, Jack, the drummer, sings that song. Jack goes, I'm going to sing. I could sing that. So it's cool because people will be like, whoa, Jack's singing it,
Yep.
And he's into it, so
are you and you may not know this, but you start thinking you got Lita. Are there any duet opportunities throughout the set at all, or have you figured that out yet? So I'm thinking about like Ozzy Osbourne and Lita Ford. Close my eyes, right?
Yeah,
and
Baz
that
did bring it up.
Baz is like, I want to do that. Yeah. So we haven't bit that one off yet. It's, some of those songs are orchestrated and there's a lot going on.
Yep.
And you got to be careful because big production. And
yeah, I hear you.
So we want to make, like I said, me and Gilby are always about like keeping true to how can we pull this off and make this great? Not
right.
We don't want to belittle it.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And that's right. You've touched on that a little bit here. I mean, especially as much respect as it's clear you guys have for the songs and the artists that have performed them. that you want to do it in a way that they'd be happy with. And some of those, like I said,
Yeah.
are, again, it goes, the layperson might think, oh, that's just a song. And then when you get into the technicalities of really doing it properly, it's a heavy lift, right? So you go, okay, let's not do that one because we're not going to live up to the expectations of the people in the audience.
Yeah, well, for instance, Night Ranger has a lot of keyboards, but we do it guitar driven. We just make it a little bit more meat and potatoes.
Right.
But you know, hopefully people won't miss the keyboard part, you know, but it's like we try to sing as many of the backgrounds or try to get the vocals right. So, you know, some work goes into getting it sounding great and bringing it to the fans and having them hear a little bit different version.
Yes.
Lightly.